Hello, and welcome to the Early American Brass Band podcast. My name is Chris Triano, joined always by Stephen Canistrisi.
Hello. Sorry, I kind of forgot about this whole hello thing, and I didn't have like a fun one planned for this. So sorry, everybody. You just get the normal.
We'll have to add a new document into our Google Drive folder, and you can just keep a list of ideas of how to vary your hello each time.
Right? Yeah. I'll think of something.
Thank you for joining us. This is our latest episode where we'll be interviewing Dr. William Hall, which for the remainder of the episode will be referred to as Bill. So, Bill did get his doctorate at Kent State University, and you'll hear in the interview some really interesting information about his studies there and how it kind of had him lean in the direction of early American brass bands and how he got involved in his current band out in Nebraska. And yeah, a lot of really great information and really nice guy. We've been talking to him for a while now, so it was great to finally have the opportunity to chat with him.
Yeah, this was a fun one to record. I learned a lot. I mean, I always learn a lot interviewing people for these episodes, but I think this one in particular kind of cleared up some things for me.
And as always, you can follow along with our show notes on our website at www.eabbpodcast.com. Show notes for this episode, show notes for all previous episodes, as well as a resource tab that Stephen and I have put together that includes useful links if you wanted to further research on your own, links to all the available CDs that are currently available by all the bands that currently and recently have previously existed, as well as a list of all the bands that currently and have previously existed as reenactment bands. So a lot of great information in that resource tab that you can kind of browse maybe as you're listening to this episode. We'd really appreciate it there. And we are on social media. Follow us in social media land on all of them, especially Twitter, because Stephen was just saying how he feels lonely on our social media Twitter. So maybe if you have a Twitter account, go over there and, I don't know, tweet at us? Is that what it is?
Tweet at us, yeah. Follow us. It's at EABB Podcast, I believe, on Twitter. Sometimes I post jokes. Sometimes I make a typo in a tweet. That's always fun to catch. You can laugh at me on Twitter, but yeah, we like Chris said, we're on all the social media stuff: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. You can find us on your preferred platform and keep up to date there. We post some exclusive stuff, especially on YouTube. So following us everywhere is a good way to make sure you don't miss out on anything.
So enjoy our interview with Bill Hall from the 1st Nebraska Volunteers Brass Band. Enjoy. Thank you so much, Bill, for coming on to the Early American Brass Band podcast this afternoon. It's awesome to have you. I think probably our first inland United Stateser. I think everybody else that we've interviewed has been on the coast so far, so it's awesome to have you on the show this time. How are you doing?
Doing really well. Thanks for inviting me. I have looked forward to this day for several weeks ever since you extended the invitation. I've listened to most of the episodes and have really enjoyed them. They're quite varied, and I've learned quite a bit of details from them.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That means a lot. That's cool to hear that people out there are listening, so that's good to know. Yeah. Would you mind maybe giving us a little bit of background on maybe your how you got into being a musician and kind of the journey to what eventually led to your involvement in early American brass bands?
Okay. Well, I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. And so I got started by attending a pre-conservatory called Cleveland Music School Settlement. And I did, children's music theory first, then piano. And in elementary school, 5th grade, right? Everybody starts band. So I picked up the trumpets there. And when I got to junior high, the band was getting ready to go to contest, and they needed baritone players. So I got drafted. and I loved the instrument. I adapted to it actually very quickly, so I played that throughout high school and most of my undergraduate days.
Was that all reading treble clef euphonium, or did you transition to bass clef reading also?
Well, initially it was treble clef. Then one year the director said, I need trombones in the orchestra. I have a valve trombone, but all of the music is in bass clef.
Yeah.
So here you go. And so I figured out how to read bass clef. So I flip back and forth between treble and bass.
Great.
Yeah. So after high school, I went to Ohio State. Everybody's got to be in that marching band, and the concert band was quite good also, and decided to major in trombone, which I picked up trombone after the valve trombone in ninth grade. Cleveland's an orchestral town, and I studied with guys in the orchestra, and I'm good. When I was in school, there weren't many euphonium opportunities. All there were the military bands, and I thought maybe I was going to be in an orchestra. So I majored in trombone and bass trombone. Taught school for a few years, and then auditioned for Pershing's Own and was accepted. Actually auditioned on both baritone and trombone. I had my choice of which one to play.
Oh, wow.
And once again chose trombone. And so I spent 2 years in Pershing's Own, mostly in the ceremonial band. I have some ceremonial band stories if you want to.
Awesome.
You want to know what life is like in the Army ceremonial band, I can tell you. And then there was an opening in the Army Field Band for a trombonist in the concert band, and I'd much rather do that than march around and stand for an hour and a half on a black tarmac in the summertime. And so I transferred there, and then in 1981 I decided that full-time a career in the military wasn't really what I wanted to do. So I got out and eventually found my way back into high school teaching. Decided that either I kind of maxed out what I could do at that level of high school. I either wanted to move to a much larger high school or teach college. So I decided I needed to go back and get my PhD, which I did. So I went to Kent State and was there for 3 years, had a marvelous time. And then, like everybody, to find it, you move where the job is, right? I got a job offer here in Nebraska. And this is what brought me from Ohio to here in the heartland or Midland or flyover state, if you will. And so we've been here for 23 years, and we enjoy living here. So that cool. I don't know, that covers a lot of territory. I don't know if that covers everything you wanted to know.
Yeah, of course. What job brought you to Nebraska?
So there was a director of bands and music ed position at Dana College, which is a Lutheran college. And so I came here for that, brought the wife. So yeah, for that. And then eventually the college closed and I retired. So.
Gotcha. Oh, wow.
While we're on the educational kind of section or background section of the show, I'm curious, what was your PhD research on?
Yes, well, the PhD was a critical performing edition of Franz Kramer's 1825 Parthia for band. So you may not, as a brass player, may not know the name Franz Kramer, but Dominic would know.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Because people know him because he wrote many octets, many harmony music.
Yeah, I remember. I did my master's degree at Penn State, and I took a wind band literature class, and I think we looked at a few of his works when we were looking at Beethoven octets and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So quite popular, and he was quite a well honored musician. Back in those days, you were invited to join the professional music societies, and he had a position in the court where he traveled with the emperor. And so when they would go all to these different cities like Paris or Milan or other places, they would always invite Kramer to join those music societies. So yeah, he was quite the guy.
What was the instrumentation for that piece that you did the edition for? Yeah.
Yeah. So we actually don't know what the original Parthia instrumentation was. It was arranged for an Austrian military band by Joseph Reznicek. Interestingly enough, Joseph Reznicek's grandson was the late Romantic composer Emil von Reznicek. So it's quite a big Austrian family. So the instrumentation for that band, piccolo, A-flat sopranino clarinet. You never want to hear an A-flat sopranino clarinet.
Yeah, doesn't sound like it. Yikes.
Wow. And 2 E-flat clarinets, 4 B-flat clarinets, 3 bassoons, a contrabassoon, serpent or ophicleide, 2 keyed trumpets. So the Anton Weidinger, do you know Anton Weidinger, the Haydn concerto, Hummel concerto? No. Okay, so you know keyed bugles, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
All right. In Austria, there were keyed trumpets. And so when most of Western Europe went to keyed bugles, Austria went to the keyed trumpets. Unfortunately, they're not as good an instrument.
Can you describe the differences between the two?
Oh, okay, sure. So first of all, the keyed trumpet is cylindrical, right? Mm-hmm. And the keyed bugle is conical. Mm-hmm. So as you drill holes in the bore of the instrument and getting closer and closer to the bell, on the keyed trumpet, they have to stay closer to the same size. But on the keyed bugle, just like the saxophone, they get bigger and bigger and bigger. Mm-hmm. Well, that allows for more sound to get out. That allows you to adjust for intonation better than the keyed trumpet does. And so I've never heard one, but the description of a keyed trumpet is that the closer you got to the bell, the keys closer to the bell, the tone quality suffered a lot. So it wasn't a consistent sound.
Gotcha.
But it was an important instrument because, again, the Hummel concerto and the Haydn trumpet concertos, which are standard works, were written for that instrument. So the Austrian military band had those. Germans would have had 2 flugelhorns. But they had those. They had some natural trumpets, some natural horns, 3 trombones, and percussion.
Gotcha.
So that was the instrumentation. So my mentor, my doctor father, showed me this and says, "Do you know this work?" And I said, "Well, no, I don't." And I'm looking through it, and I'm going, "Hey, this is a pretty good piece of music, and it fills a gap." You know, we have some pieces from the French Revolution that are for large band. We have some pieces for small band, and then we have some other pieces. We have like the Mendelssohn Overture, and we start getting into. But there's nothing right in this gap that's really good. So I thought maybe this piece could be that. So. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I got copies of the score, and unbeknownst to David Whitwell. Do you know the name David Whitwell?
It doesn't ring a bell.
You should know David Whitwell. David Whitwell was quite a scholar. So for his master's degree, he went to Germany, or to Salzburg. He was a horn player. Mm-hmm. And while he was there, he went to all of these libraries all over Germany and France and Italy and Austria, looking for windworks. And so he uncovered quite a bit. Subsequently, he was the band director at Cal State Northridge. He wrote a 10-volume history and literature of the wind band. And you should check the George Mason Library.
They do have it. I've looked through now that you mentioned that he published those volumes. The name rings a bell. I remember looking through a few of those when I was doing a little bit of research for a class last year.
Yeah, and there's also a concise history, which it's good, but it's exhaustive, just exhaustive. And he lists all of these pieces from all of these libraries. Well, he found the score to this piece and scratched out an edition of his own, and which he sold to college bands and stuff. He didn't know that there was a set of parts, and so I got both, and I put them together and try to reconcile all of the articulation differences between score and parts, and produce that for my PhD. So awesome. Also did a lot of history study of European bands and stuff like that.
Wow, that's fantastic. Gotcha. So we know that you've always kind of had this interest in band history and brass history. What was the push that made you get more hands-on with early American brass music?
Yeah, so I've always had an interest. As a matter of fact, when I did my master's at Catholic, we had a bibliography project, and I did mine on the development of the sax horns. So I was interested then. That was wonderful. You guys get the opportunity where you're at to go to the Library of Congress all the time, and so I did all of my work at the Library of Congress back in those days, and it was wonderful having access to books that most college libraries don't have. So anyhow, I did that, and so that's part of it. When I was in high school, I got an opportunity to play in a German brass band. So polka band, but German brass band. Also in an Italian band. And those bands have incredible histories. They go back into the 19th century. I think I've always been interested in that. But how about Civil War bands? So I'm not sure when I first heard Civil War band music. I know when I heard the first British brass band, but I'm not sure about Civil War. It might have been the Heritage Americana. When I was in the Army Field Band, one of our players, a euphonium player, Carlisle Weber, I don't know if you guys know Carlisle, so he used to go down and play at Catholic. I don't know if he was enrolled in degree or not, but so he knew Robert Garofalo. And so I don't know if Mark Elrod was in on this project, but with the Smithsonian and with Robert Garofalo, they put together from the Smithsonian's collection a Civil War brass band. They made some concerts and some appearances, and also cut a record. So I think that might have been my first exposure to Civil War brass bands.
Gotcha.
And so here in Nebraska, they after I started teaching at Dana, I heard, well, there's a Civil War band in Fremont, which is a town that's 30 miles from us. And a lot of the local musicians from where I live in Blair were driving there and being a part of that. And I got curious about it. And it was an invitation-only band, and I wanted to know why I didn't have an invitation. So I managed to get an invitation and join the band. And this wasn't a brass band, though. This was a concert band.
Gotcha.
And so the way that this band started was there's a Fremont is named after Civil War General John C. Fremont. And Fremont, before the Civil War, was a governor in California. Before that, he and Kit Carson were explorers and opened up a lot of the routes into California. So he was known as the Pathfinder. And so he was kind of a big guy. And in the Civil War, he was made the commanding general of west of the Mississippi at the beginning of the war, and he had his headquarters in St. Louis. So Fremont, Nebraska was named after him, just like Fremont, California is. And they have a summer festival, like every town has a summer festival. And they named it after John C. Fremont. So back in about 1989, a lawyer who was a part of the community foundation says, hey, why don't we have a Civil War band for our festival? And so they asked this retired band director, if he would put one together. And I think his intention was to put together an all brass band, but the idea got so popular and he had so many friends and couldn't say no, that eventually it was about a 45-piece concert band. Well, of course, there are a few issues with a 45-piece mixed woodwind and brass band trying to play Civil War music. For a lot of the arrangements, there are no woodwind parts at all, unless you're doing the band from Port Royal.
Port Royal,
band. And so what do you do with all these woodwinds that make up most of the band? And so they ended up just playing modern concert band music. And they play about 5 times a year, and it was fun. We used to do a lot of things. And that really sparked my interest there into what the real Civil War band was like. So I heard about the first Vintage Band Festival in Northfield, Minnesota, and went up there. And I heard the Dodwood Sound Band and Yari Villanueva brought the 26th North Carolina Band, and the 1st Brigade Band out of Wisconsin was there. And I heard it, and I'm going, this is marvelous. This is marvelous music. And I fell in love with it then. So I did some arranging, because online at the Library of Congress were some parts, and I think they still are some that are online, digitized.
Yep.
And so I got some things and made some arrangements and stuff and tried to play them, and then discovered that they were too hard for some of the players.
They're tough.
Well, anyhow, that band lost its rehearsal space about 2010 or so, and they decided to disband. And so there was the equipment, there was this band, and nothing was going on. In the meantime, I had started an auditioned adult concert band in Omaha. And we were playing around and stuff like that. And a library in Plattsmouth, not Plattsmouth, La Vista, it's a southern suburb of Omaha, was going to house the National 150 Years Traveling Civil War exhibit. And they were going to be the only library in Nebraska to have this. And one of the librarians said, hey, why don't we put together a Civil War band for this? So we got wind of that and put together about a 14-piece Civil War band. I got some arrangements from Bob Bass, who you just interviewed, with the Old Town Brass, and some other things I had. And we put on about an hour concert for the opening of that exhibit. Cool. And we had a great time doing that. And then one of our musicians lives in a town that was celebrating its sesquicentennial. And that happens a lot in this area, where towns are celebrating their 150th anniversary, because most of us are railroad towns around here, and they were started when the Transcontinental Railroad went through.
Gotcha.
So we got invited to play for that, and that was fun. We said, hey, why don't we start up a Civil War band for real?
Yeah.
And so we got some of the uniforms from the first band, and eventually, little by little, started getting some period instruments and stuff for our band. But we decided to remain all brass. We resisted the woodwind players who wanted to join us, and focused on authentic Civil War period arrangements and played. And wow, I've really talked all around the how did I get started?
Yeah, no, it's great. That's exactly what we wanted. It's awesome.
Yeah.
We should probably know this, but is the Nebraska Civil War connection mainly tied to individuals that were drawn on to enlist from there, or was there any on the ground action that happened in Nebraska?
Okay, there was no fighting in Nebraska. Nebraska at the time of the Civil War was a territory. And this is kind of, I think, a cool thing that Nebraskans like, is that, when President Lincoln asked each of the states to send volunteers, he was looking for, I think at that time, a total of 75,000 volunteers. The territories didn't have to send anyone. But Nebraska said, no, we're patriotic. We want to send regiment too. And so the 1st Nebraska Regiment was organized in, I think mustered in June of 1861, and went to war. They fought, the two notable battles that they fought in were at Fort Donelson, which the regiment had a major part in, and also in the Battle of Shiloh, or Pittsburgh Landing, as it's known in the North. And they had a major part in the second day of that battle. They marched on Corinth with the rest of the army, and went to Memphis, and eventually across the Mississippi River to Helena, Arkansas. And about that time is the September 1862. And so we know that in July, August, I can't remember the date, the order went out from the War Department to disband the regimental bands in favor of brigade bands. And that eventually got, by August, September, to where our band was, the 1st Nebraska, and they were disbanded at that time. Most of them very happily disbanded. They did not like military life at all.
Especially going through some of those early Western theater battles. It was rough out there at the beginning, for sure.
Yeah, and there was a lot of disease. And the interesting thing about the march on Corinth, Mississippi was a major railroad crossroads. And so the Union wanted to get that so that the Confederates couldn't shuttle equipment and supplies around. But that's only like 30 miles south of where the Battle of Shiloh was. But they took a month to get there. They would advance a mile and dig in. I think they were afraid that the Confederates were going to surprise them like they did the first day at Shiloh. So they weren't going to be surprised. So it took them a month to get there. Wow. And in the meantime, it's raining, because this is the spring. It rained at Shiloh. It rains and it rains and it rains. Well, you put men out in the mud, for that long, people get sick. And the band had one of their members died. They got really, really sick. They evacuated this band member to Cincinnati to a military hospital. He died in the military hospital. That's the only band member that died, but they were pretty fed up. So they wanted to be disbanded. And the commander of the regiment said, no, we need to have our band and stuff. It's a point of pride for many regiments. So the members of the band wrote the Secretary of the War, and they wrote President Lincoln and said, we want out. One of the reasons is that when they enlisted, they thought that this regiment was going to stay in Nebraska and defend Nebraska against Indian attack. And no, they marched them off. And so some of these guys going, wait a minute, this is not what we enlisted for. And so they weren't too happy. People were getting sick and stuff. So they wrote. And I have a copy of a letter that one of the members wrote to a friend back in Omaha, telling about, we think we're going to get out really soon because we wrote the Secretary of War.
Yeah, well.
And then I'm going through the archives, the Nebraska archives, and I'm actually handling the actual order books and stuff for the regiment. And I come across this order, and it says, no member of the 1st Nebraska Regiment will write to the Secretary of War or the President of the United States without permission of the commanding officer. I'm like, I know what this is about.
Yeah. That's hilarious. Yikes.
So anyhow, most of the members then left when they were disbanded by the Department of War. They were very happy and they scattered. Mm-hmm. A few of them joined other regiments or, became a company bugler, but most of them left. And
gotcha. So your band, the first Nebraska Volunteer Brass Band, is a reenactment, or is a reenacting band of that original Nebraska Brass Band.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, great.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Cool. Do you guys have any pictures or anything of the original band that you try to base impressions off of, or are we not that nitty gritty?
Yeah, no, and this is one of the differences between the Eastern Theater, as in the Army of the Potomac, and the Western Theater. Is we didn't have the Matthew Brady's and some of the other photographers that worked for him. We didn't have them as going along. Now, I do know the name of the photographer who was supposed to go as photographer with the regiment, but we cannot find any military photographs of his at all. We only have a handful that occur from later in Nebraska history. So yeah, we don't have any photos. There is a photo of a soldier that he had taken in a St. Louis studio in his full dress uniform, and so he's got the lighter sky blue trousers, and he's got the long frock coat, and he's got all of his weapons and stuff, and he has the much hated Hardy hat. Do you know the Hardy hat?
No.
Okay, the Hardy hat would look like a cowboy hat, except one side is up straight.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the other side is kind of and it's up straight, and there's an eagle, and some of them had feathers in them. But the soldiers hated those hats. They much preferred either the forage cap or the kepi cap, and I think it's because they were a pain to take care of, and put in their knapsack, whatever they put their clothes in and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So, by the way, did you know that bands had a wagon to carry their stuff in when they were marching from places to places?
The bandwagon?
Yeah, they didn't sit on it. They marched, but they had their own wagon. So when you see those pictures of, maybe the Army of the Potomac, someplace you see these thousands of wagons that are lined up. One of those is a bandwagon.
It's a bandwagon.
There you go.
Yeah.
So Bill, with the band currently, are you guys still using the uniforms from the original Fremont Band when that one disbanded, or have you guys changed?
Yeah, we're doing basically the original. So we're not fortunate to be near someone who has a collection of instruments that we can take advantage of, and nor are we near people who like to give money, foundation money. So we're using the same sack coats and hats that they had back then.
Now, when they got those originally, were they based on the same uniforms that would have been issued to the Nebraska soldiers, or are they kind of just generic?
No, I don't think we really know what when at the beginning of the Civil War, there were two colors of pants. Not everybody had sky blue pants. Some regiments had the dark blue pants.
I didn't know that there were dark blue pants.
Yeah, they were older, and so they decided to run out the stock. So we don't know what we don't know what pants we got. We don't know if we have the dark blue pants or the light blue pants. And interestingly enough, you can see some Civil War photographs where regiments have both dark and light blue pants at the same time in the same regiment.
Wow.
So so we don't know. So we use the sort of the kepi rather than forage hats, and we use sack coats, and then dark, or some of the guys have sky blue pants, so we're mixed also. So we do that, and that's our uniform. Instrument-wise, we started out with all modern instruments. We didn't inherit any of the Fremont-based band did not have any historical instruments, and so we started with modern. Our priorities were quality music, quality, original, authentic music. Second priority was getting original instruments, and the third priority was getting completely authentic uniforms. So we're still working through that. Music-wise, we've been doing very well on that. We now have 8 or 9 period instruments that we're using. I think I have a couple of tenor horns that are not playable. But so we have 4 cornets, two E flat cornets and 2 B flat cornets that are we're using, and we have 5 players, so one is still playing a modern instrument. Our tuba player decided to buy an instrument, came available, and I'll tell you more about I don't know if we have the sugar daddy or not, but it became available, and he decided to purchase it, and it's a completely restored Lion and Healy tuba. Nice. But it's side action rotary valve, so period. Let's see. We have 1 tenor horn that we're using that is period. I think 2 of our players have purchased late 19th century tenor horns that just a little bit later in the period. We'd like to have something that's newer than 1880.
Gotcha. How many members are in the band now?
We have about 13, 14 members.
Gotcha. And when you're referring to we, besides those few individuals such as the tuba player and whatnot that own the instruments, are all the other instruments your instruments?
Band owned.
Band owned. Okay.
Band owned. Gotcha. So when we use our appearance and travel fees that we get from the places that we play, goes into a kitty, and most of the time it goes for instruments. Gotcha. It goes for music, and right now it's going to produce our first CD, but awesome. Most of the time it goes for. I've had to pass out some nice instruments this year because I'm saving the money for the CD. There've been a couple of nice instruments out there. Anyhow, and then I have, which is probably the prime instrument of the collection. I have about an 1870 Ernst Seltman upright top action rotary valve alto horn.
Nice.
And as you know, I'm not an alto horn player. I'm not a French horn player. I'm a baritone trombone player. So I've been having a hard time keeping alto horn players. And the band isn't prestigious enough that people say, "I'll switch just to play in your band." So I've become the alto horn player.
Gotcha. Yeah, I saw that you were listed as an alto horn player with the band, and then when you were talking earlier in the interview about baritone and trombone, I was like, oh, there's going to be a switch somewhere. It's going to happen at some point.
One time I had a band, and I had to be the lead cornet in the band, not a Civil War band, but something else. I had to be this comes from the music education background. You just got to do what you need to do, right?
Yeah, that's true, definitely.
So, yeah, we've got a member in the band at George Mason who is a euphonium player, but has kind of shifted a little bit to that alto horn role. And has really taken that on, and I think he enjoys doing it. He's a music education major too, so he comes from that. You got to be able to kind of play everything, at least to model for students. So yeah,
right. Well, that's good. It's one way to get into a smaller mouthpiece, and it's really a nice instrument. Paul Hindemith wrote a solo for alto horn. People play it on French horn, but it's written for alto, E flat alto horn. So there is literature.
Yeah, definitely. Do you have a personal primary instrument besides the alto horn? Like, do you have like a prized either period trombone, baritone, tenor horn that you own?
Well, I do have a period trombone, but it's not a Civil War period. I have one of the first Con 8Hs that were produced in the mid 50s. And so that's sort of my prize.
Yeah, that's great.
It's collecting dust.
There you go. No, that's awesome. What types of things are you guys thinking are going to be on this first recording project? Unless you don't want to talk about it, unless it's a secret. I don't know.
No, it's not a secret. We've done all the recording.
Oh, cool.
So we discovered in the 25th Massachusetts books, we discovered a piece called Viva la America. It's a march. So that's on it. It's so I don't know that anybody else has recorded that yet. It's really nice, and it has some Italian sounds to it too. And I'm not sure the person there's a piano sheet music to that. And if you've been following Michael O'Connor lately, his research is going pre-Civil War, finding piano music where there's no band thing existing. Yeah. And, we know that this piece was published in, I think, 1863 by Oliver Ditson in Boston in a piano form by a composer by the name of Burdett. So if that's the person, but it's a really very nice march, and especially in the trio section, it has a very Italian-like melodies to it.
So it's mostly concert rep and not really the pops, like the Civil War pops music kind of thing.
We've got my arrangement of When Johnny Comes Marching Home on it.
Cool. Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of a model railroaders talk about kit bashing. Do you know that term, kit bashing? Mm-hmm. Right. Kit bashing is they take two kits of like maybe a boxcar kit from two different companies, and they make a boxcar that's using parts from both of them, and they kind of bash the two kits together.
Gotcha.
So my arrangement of When Johnny Comes Marching Home is kit bashed from some existing arrangements. Let's see, what else? So there's a unique piece on it. I discovered a piano sheet music, there's a music library in Lincoln, Nebraska that has some old piano music, and it's called the Omaha Guards Waltz. So when the regiment marched out, they still needed a militia. They established a militia, and somebody wrote a waltz for their, annual military ball. Well, it turns out that the person who wrote this was a Viennese immigrant, a violinist and a conductor, and obviously composer. He actually led the first orchestras in Omaha, besides teaching violin. He was a lieutenant in this militia, and he wrote this waltz, and it's a Viennese waltz. Can you imagine a Viennese waltz in the United States? So I've arranged it from the piano, and it's a Viennese waltz, all right.
That's
great. So that's on there. So let's see, the Battle Hymn Quick Steps on there. We have a version of Red, White, and Blue, mostly based on the first Brigade Band's National Quick Step.
Do you guys have like a window, like a time frame that you're kind of aiming for getting this thing out?
Oh yeah, it's well, it's taken longer than we wanted. So all the recording and post-production has been done. We're waiting on the master copies of that to come in to send it out to have it duplicated. And I have to write the liner notes and things like that yet for it. But so I'm hoping that it's out by summer.
Awesome. Yeah.
Well, wait a minute, it is summer.
Yeah.
the other summer. Yeah. Right. Well, please.
I hope it's out by our next gig.
There you go. Yeah. I think. we'll probably hear about it online, but also please keep us up to date with that. Also, we'd like to help promote that for you guys when that comes out. We'll add it to the discography resource that we have on the website. So,
Great.
yeah,
Thank you.
very cool. Yeah, definitely. I guess, Stephen, along the lines of period instruments, you always have a go-to that you like to ask
Oh,
in relation.
yeah. So, what are you using? Period mouthpieces or modern mouthpieces?
Uh, so a mix.
Gotcha.
So as you may know, matching a period horn to a mouthpiece is really tough.
Yeah.
For instance, we have a baritone that we're not using here, marvelous instrument, except it has that problem that all older instruments have, which is the octaves don't line up. And mouthpiece makes a big difference. Also, and I must say that a period mouthpiece came with a horn, but not the one that the horn was built for.
Yeah.
So the notes slot differently depending on the mouthpiece that you're using. So
Definitely.
whether it's with a modern mouthpiece that'll slot one way, a period mouthpiece slots another way, and depending on the period mouthpiece may also slot different ways.
Yeah.
So plus you also then have the player. Are they comfortable with the mouthpiece?
Mm-hmm.
So our E-flat players are all playing modern mouthpieces, although one is a German mouthpiece that is pretty much a copy of a period American mouthpiece.
Nice.
I think he uses that in British brass band too.
Gotcha.
And at least one of our B-flat cornet players is playing on a period mouthpiece that he's found very comfortable to play with, and it has helped. He's got a very nice Boston cornet that he's playing on, and
cool.
it's really helped to do that. Our tuba player has gone through 2 or 3 different period mouthpieces to find something that fits. And let me see. I don't know about any of the tenor horn players, whether they're playing on a period mouthpiece or not. I currently am not. I played with got the period mouthpiece with my horn, and I've used it at times, and I don't know. It's just I have a very nice Yamaha modern mouthpiece that works really well with a horn, and so I'm not. I understand the need for authenticity, and I'd say that we're growing to that, but we don't have access to enough mouthpieces to be able to satisfy our players, and it's just another step that we've only played 5 seasons. This is our 6th year, and of course we're not playing because nobody's playing.
It's got an asterisk next to year number 6. Right?
Yeah. And so we're still a young band. We're buying instruments as we have funds for them, and we're growing in authenticity. And that's the way it is.
Yeah, we're finding that that's the case. With every single band, nobody. Well, I'm sure somebody has been able to, but generally people aren't able to be like, okay, I'm going to start a band and then go out and buy all the uniforms, all the music, all the instruments, and show up at their first gig with a brand new ensemble that's ready to go. So
hold my beer. I do know somebody who did that.
Oh yeah, who is it? Which one did that?
This is the Liberty Band of Iowa, and this is maybe our sugar daddy. That's where we've gotten several horns from. So the Steve Sprague, who is the leader and owner, is an antiques dealer.
That helps.
So he's managed to buy horns all over the place. He has all of them restored. He bought a complete set of uniforms from a company, and I guess if he gets a new player and he doesn't have a uniform that fits, I guess he buys the uniform. So he owns everything for his band. And the reason we've got some horns is we decided we want to be an upright bell band and not an over-the-shoulder bell. For one reason, they're a lot less expensive
Yeah, true.
But also it's a little flexible, more flexible with the upright bell. Why? Because at Christmas time we do some British brass band Christmas music.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
You read out of the Salvation Army books? Is that...
No, actually, well, I have bought some. They have some smaller Salvation Army Band Christmas collections. They're not for the full complement, and so they pretty much fit our band. Nice. And they produced like 2 sets of those. We don't. I'd rather play out of the Sammy Nestico than playing out of. Do you know the Sammy Nestico?
The school district where I went to middle and high school.
Okay.
They have like a holiday breakfast for the faculty every year, and a number of the band directors have gotten like a group of the music faculty and some alumni to come through. Right. And those Sammy Nestico books are fun. There are a lot of good arrangements in those books.
Well, there's also, if you go on the Moravian Foundation, they have 3 different collections of small brass Christmas music that you can get through the Moravian Foundation. So, yeah, that's going to be our band's next acquisition with next year's budget, is we're going to get some Moravian brass Christmas music, which I think will work well for us.
Yeah. Sure. Well, I'll have to look into that because I have a lot of respect for them, not just because of the 26th North Carolina, but do you know that they have some harmony music too?
I know that they can be regarded as being one of the first brass performers in the New World, basically. So,
yeah. Well, when I was doing some of my harmony music research and stuff like that, I ran across some pieces that they had. I want to say, don't quote me on this name, but I think it's like Jean Michael Michel or Michael. It might be the last name. And there's some six part, so 2 clarinet, 2 horn, and 2 bassoon. And there's a couple of them at least down there, and I was really surprised to find that. So, of course, everybody who's a trombone player knows about the Moravian trombone choirs. So.
Yeah, definitely. yeah, for sure.
So I don't know how we got there. Okay, Christmas music.
Yeah.
So we decided to be an upright bell band because of the flexibility, and because the price of over-the-shoulder instruments are so much more expensive. And, we would still be waiting to buy our first E-flat tuba if we were, if we were trying to buy one of those with what we make off of our summer gigs, So anyhow, what ends up happening then is Steve has been funneling some of his upright instruments because he's decided that he's going to be an over-the-shoulder band. Gotcha. By the way, they've built a bandwagon too.
Oh, they have one?
They
nice.
go around the summer parades, and they have a bandwagon. It's kind of that they've built. They've got some plans and stuff from an original one, and I guess he must be a little bit of a woodworker too.
They have a truck pulling it, or they have a horse pulling it?
Well, I think they've had a truck pulling it.
Yeah. There you go.
The modern version, the modern equivalent of a horse.
Yeah. So I hope it's better than when we've played in a parade on the back of a flatbed, I'll tell you.
Those are not fun.
No.
We do one of the other Pennsylvania is great, or at least where I grew up in Pennsylvania. There's so many community bands around. Like there was a summer I played with 3 community bands, and I didn't really have to travel that far from my parents' house. But we always did a Memorial Day parade with one of them on the back of a flatbed, and most of the parade route is straight. But then when you turn, we got to stop playing and brace all the chairs for the turn. Because sometimes the driver would forget that he's got 20 people on the back of the truck.
we did this one where the tractor, one of the rear tires of the tractor went flat as we were in the parade. So by the end of the parade, it was
everybody starts sliding to one corner of the flatbed.
Hopefully that's the only thing that went flat during that performance.
No, well, because our bands go sharp, don't they?
Yeah, that's true.
Especially out in the sun. Yeah. That's funny.
Oh man.
There was one thing you asked about that we could talk about, was some of our favorite gigs or our unusual gigs, special gigs.
Yeah.
And so I guess there are four that stand out for us. The first one would have been last summer we played in Northfield for the Vintage Band Festival. It was our first time there, and we just had a great time. The largest audiences that we've ever played for were up there, and we enjoyed interacting with the other bands, and a lot of our players just went and listened all the time, and so it was just a wonderful experience for us. We hope they invite us back when they have their next one. So that's one. The most unusual one that we had was in February of 2018. The International Quilt Museum in Lincoln, Nebraska had an exhibit of Ken Burns's quilts, most of which were Civil War era quilts.
Oh, wow.
So everybody knows who Ken Burns is because of the Civil War series and many other wonderful documentaries. And nobody knew that he was a quilt collector, but he is. And so they had this, and the daughter of our drummer said, "Hey, we could get the band here to play the opening." So we did an opening concert for the museum for the quilt exhibit, and it was wonderfully attended. We had a really wonderful and very appreciative crowd. So
cool.
We did that one. Let's see, in October of 2016, one of the towns far west from us, about 3 hours away, had a bandstand that was 100 years old. And they're very, very proud of their 100-year-old bandstand. And so they contacted us and said, would you do the rededication concert for our 100-year-old bandstand? And they fixed it all up, and they repainted it, and
that's special.
They put us up in a hotel overnight, and just treated us like kings the whole time. And so we had a wonderful time in that community playing the rededication concert for their bandstand. And guess what? It fit our band. You ever wonder why those bandstands are always so small? Because the bands were small, right?
Yeah.
They were built for 60-piece high school bands, right? They were built for 15-piece bands. Yeah. So we did that one. That was great. And then just last year, we have a residence called the Joslin Castle. Now, the Joslin name is very big in Omaha. A wealthy patron. The art museum is named after the Joslin, so they probably gave all the money for it. Well, they have this marvelous mansion. It looks like a castle, and it's a museum. Everybody goes to it and everything. Well, back in 1880, the Joslins decided to have a summer lawn party and to invite all of their friends from the city of Omaha. And so Omaha has Fort Omaha. At that time, there was a band at Fort Omaha. And so they got the Army band to come out and to play a concert on the lawn while they were having, beer and playing croquet and doing whatever else that they did. So they decided to do one of those last summer. Nice. And it's the first one they've had since 1880.
Wow.
And so they contacted us to come out and play for it. And we had a wonderful time. There's some pictures on our website if you browse through some of the blog gigs and stuff. We just had a wonderful time doing that. So those are our maybe 4 standout gigs.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's cool that you guys are doing a variety of different performances. It's not, strictly just like battlefield reenactments and that kind of thing.
We don't have that.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
It's not like you can go from Fredericksburg to Richmond and every half hour play a battlefield.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, definitely.
Here, the closest battlefield is, I think, on the Iowa Missouri border, and it's just like a minor skirmish. So, yeah, we haven't even gone to like Fort Donelson or Shiloh, where the historical performances were. Those are kind of far away.
Yeah, yeah.
So we haven't done that. And then we have places we go where we play for senior citizens.
Gotcha.
And there's a small town in south central Nebraska called Superior that has a lot of Victorian homes. So their festival is a Victorian festival.
Okay.
And this would have been the third time that we would have played out there for their festival. And, it's the older people in town that remember band concerts, summer band concerts. And they come out, and they're a really wonderful crowd. And we do that at several places. We play several sesquicentennials and things like that. So, yes, a variety.
Yeah.
A variety of things. Yeah.
That's awesome. Very cool. Glad to hear that your performances are healthy and still going during normal circumstances, not this summer, but but otherwise that's great.
Yeah, and I know that there's some bands that are having difficulties because there seems to be a waning interest in some of the Civil War events. And so if they're, been doing mostly Civil War events, they're having some difficulty keeping their calendars full. But since we don't have any out there.
Yeah, there you go. You could be the example for bands over the rest of the country for other opportunities. Yeah, that's great. I am interested, especially being a newer, quote unquote newer band, 5-6 year old band. If you guys have needed to or on your own thought about how you guys would approach playing music of the Civil War and portraying the Civil War time period, especially, at the time of this recording, it's June 2020. So especially like in this climate, I know even before all this was happening, that some people were always just wary of mentioning or talking about the Civil War because of bringing up any sort of ill feelings or any sort of controversy. And for some people, that has been a deal breaker and a barrier for even getting into the hobby and into the music. So I was wondering what your thoughts are kind of on that and how you guys have decided to navigate that, if it's even needed to come up in Nebraska. I don't even know.
Actually, it hasn't come up at all. This is a very strong northern part of the country, strong union. So there are a lot of German immigrants that founded Nebraska and a lot of western Iowa. And the reason that they immigrated was because they believed in liberty. This is post 1848 revolutions, and they're coming over, and they were very much anti-slavery, so they have very strong northern feel. But we don't run into any problems at all. As a matter of fact, since Nebraska was a territory and most of the places got started after the Civil War, most of the people don't know much about the Civil War at all.
Well, wasn't the Kansas-Nebraska Act that basically made the Nebraska territory a free territory in the Kansas territory? Yeah.
Yeah, but the people would have been free anyhow. They would have never been a slave state. They wanted no part of that. So we just haven't run into it. They don't know much about the Civil War here. Our focus for our programming has been, let's find the best music that we can play, the best quality music, the best arrangements and all of that. Let's find the really good stuff to play. And let's tell the people what we're playing, why we're playing it. Let's talk about the life of the soldier. What was their daily life like? Did they know that band played for funerals? What about when they got out of town and the officers wanted to have a ball with the people in the town? We have to have something like that. Well, what about when the officers wanted to have the band come over and play after the mess? Well, they wanted some opera aria or something like that. And so we've had a varied program of things, and again, we looked for the best that we could find. And so we haven't programmed anything that would be basically minstrel. I mean, Dixie, because everybody that's the one piece everybody knows, right? Is Dixie.
So you guys do play Dixie?
Yeah. Yeah, we have, there's what, 2 or 3 nice quick step arrangements.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's some great music out there.
So we alternate. We play this one year, next year we'll play a different one. Try to keep the musicians interested and fresh.
True.
So I think that's the thing about our band, and I'm sure other guys do too, but I'm very, very careful to make sure that our musicians stay interested in what we're playing by giving them quality things to play, giving at least the people that are on the tougher parts challenges. Those of us that play afterbeats don't get too many challenges, but the other people, it's important. And we just haven't run into a problem with it at all.
Interesting.
Great. Well, this has been a fantastic conversation, Bill. Where can people go to find more about you, the band, and the recording project that you guys are working on?
Okay. Well, certainly our website, it's firstnebraskaband.wordpress.com. Now, the first in First Nebraska is 1ST. So it's not FIRST. It's 1ST Nebraska Band.wordpress.com. There's some audio files on there. They're older audio files, but there's some good ones on there. Some photos. We have a kind of running blog, except it's not much lately, on there of gigs that we've played, and some of our instrument photos and things are on there, things like that. So people could find out about the band from there. And my contact information is there if they're interested in having the band come and play. If they're close enough, if you have any listeners that are out in this part of the country, if they're close enough, that we'd love to go and play for them. So we have that. And then we've recorded a CD. It's not ready for release yet. As soon as it is, we'll certainly post that on the website and then make sure that we get information to you guys so that you can post it. We thank you for doing that.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much, Bill, for coming out onto Zoom this afternoon and speaking with us. It was awesome getting to meet you finally. We've been talking for a while. Finally get the chance to meet you and talk. This has been awesome, being able to talk about European bands and your band and the history of Nebraska. It was a lot, but it was awesome. It was a lot of great information. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. You guys are great hosts, and I just really enjoyed talking with you and being on. It just seems like we were sitting across the table from each other.
Yeah. First, we just need a beer, right? Now it's after 12, so now I could. Thank you again to Dr. William Hall, aka Bill Hall, for coming onto the podcast and speaking with us. Really nice guy, a lot of fun, a lot of really good information. Hope you guys enjoyed learning a lot about the early pre-Civil War band stuff and even Nebraska history in general. I hope you guys enjoyed it, because we certainly did. I know I didn't really know anything about Nebraska's direct involvement during that time period, so it was cool chatting about that.
Yeah, I knew nothing about Nebraska's involvement in the Civil War, so that was neat to learn a little bit there. So if you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to follow us on all social media platforms. We've got Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, everything. We're everywhere.
Bam.
Right. I feel like I need sound effects for that part. But no, we post some exclusive stuff on social media. So if you follow us wherever you'd like, you can stay up to date with everything we're putting out. You can get in touch with us on social media. You can also email us at eabbpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions or suggestions for us, drop us a line. Is that something people say? Drop us a line? Just get in touch. We love to hear from you. Yeah, so we look forward to interacting with you on social media and through email.
This episode's featured album, we're doing something a little bit different today. So you heard that Bill was talking about his band CD that will be coming hopefully within the next year. That will not be the featured album, just keep that on your radar. But our featured album, quote unquote, is going to be actually still the first Nebraska brass band through their website's audio file. So please go to firstnebraskaband.wordpress.com. That's the First Nebraska Volunteers Brass Band website, and at the top you'll see a tab that says audio files. If you click on that, as I am doing in real time, you will see a SoundCloud embedded where you can listen to a handful of previous recordings by Bill Hall's band. So please check them out and have a listen to some great music over there.
Yeah, there are 8 tracks there, so I guess maybe we'll call that an EP. Is that? Yeah,
it's like an EP.
Yeah, we'll run with that. So go check them out. There's some good music there for you to listen to.
Cool. So thank you again so much for tuning in for this episode of the Early American Brass Band podcast. We appreciate your support, and we look forward to speaking for you.
At you, to you. Who knows? We'll talk to you later.
Yeah. Have a good one. Thank you.